It's Supernal Radio time here. So, this is our normal fun start to the year. This is our first episode of Supernal for 2022. It's been a very full-on year already. Lots of personal stuff going on, and as our listeners would know, we are a small, tight-knit volunteer group, and what impacts one impacts all. So, it's good to be back on the radio and getting a bit of information out there about what's going on, about where we're heading with the magazine for 2022. And there's a lot of stuff there, so just remember you can go and see all the magazines, the podcasts, the videos, all that sort of stuff at www.supernalmagazineaustralia.com.au. And also drn1.com.au is the radio station that supports us and makes this happen. And you can go to their app and you can listen to their stuff as well. And you can go to the Life program or the Life radio show, and you'll hear all the Supernal podcasts and stuff like that. And they have some great 24-hour relaxation music going on there, as well as other health and wellbeing shows. So without any further ado, our co-host today is the very lovely Shirley Sienna from the Peninsula. How are you, Shirley?
I'm well, thanks, Anthony. It's nice to be back. I didn't realise this was our first show for the year. I've lost total track of time, as many have.
Yeah, well, it's just amazing how quickly 4 months has disappeared. I mean, we're into May, and
yeah,
where's that gone? I mean, I know there's been a lot happening.
Yep.
And for many members of the team, actually, personal tragedy.
Yes.
With passing and that sort of stuff. And it just suddenly it eats up a week or two, and then suddenly, a couple of months down the track, we're going, we haven't done a show lately. We better.
Well, I've had additions. I've had Natasha and the Bubba, little Kai, come home to live in Hastings from Nicaragua. So now if she comes on, she'll be local.
Yeah, well, that'll help.
So my life's totally changed. They're not home at the moment, so I can. There's no noise in the background.
Oh, that's good.
So yes, it was a good timing.
It was interesting, and we will get Natasha on the show.
Yes.
A little bit into the future, because all her travels and what's been going on, because she's been a regular with the magazine since almost day one.
Yeah.
With a couple of features on.
Yes, so, Bubby was born, and now they're re-establishing themselves back in Australia. So it's quite big around here.
It is.
And Nana's face is gone.
Well, the thing is, it's one of those funny things.
That you are living in Hastings?
Yes, down on the peninsula.
Now, you're not allowed to talk, Jeff. I haven't brought you into the show yet.
Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just jump into it. We have the one and only amazing Geoff Cantor joining us in the show today as our special guest. And Geoff is responsible for a story in the latest issue of the magazine, I Never Met Jesus of Nazareth, I'll say it properly, which we'll talk about a bit later. But welcome and thanks for joining us, Geoff.
Thank you very much for having me, and pleasure meeting you in the sort of virtual reality here. It's great that we can do this and connect. And I was just going to say that Hastings I grew up in Mornington.
Oh, really?
And now I live in Queensland. I'm an escapee.
An escapee. Yeah, I've thought about it myself. And I love it down here. I love it. The foreshores down the end of the street. I walked down there this morning with the dog. I like it here. So I've always taken myself around the peninsula, and Balnarring is now I consider it my front yard. A beach with beautiful sunsets and energy. So.
Well, I kind of started from Mornington, and I used to be a member of the Portsea Surf Lifesaving Club.
Ah.
And I always used to start my journeys down there on that Portsea beach.
Yeah.
And then I'd head off on these incredible journeys that went right around the world. And I'd say, I'll complete them when I come back to the Portsea beach. And I'd go back to the beach and say, well, that was the end of that journey. Now we start the next one.
Oh, I like that.
I did that a number of times. And now suddenly I escaped to Queensland 15 years ago.
Wow. I love that. I love that. Well, you're always welcome to pop in for a visit if you're down.
Oh, I'd love to come for a cup of tea.
Yeah.
I'd love to. Yeah. Well, I love that neck of the woods. It always felt like home to me.
Yeah.
The whole peninsula area.
Yeah, that's I was living in the Yarra Valley, and I was just down here for the day by chance, passing through, and I got out for coffee, and Spirit said to me, "You're home," and I went, "Uh-oh." And the next week I was living in a unit across the road from where I got my coffee. That was a life change.
There you
That
go.
was.
That's another story. But yeah, and
seems,
I feel home.
yeah,
I feel
it
home
seems
down
forever
here.
ago. You know,
It does. I've been here.
Yeah.
That was the end of 2016.
You mentioned that Spirit guides you.
Yeah, it was
That
in my
very
head.
much is what happens with me. And as I look back through the arc of my life, that seems to be what's been going on since I was a kid.
Yes.
I just head off down the road, not knowing where I was going, not knowing what was going to happen. And all these things would take place. And, you know, I go on long journeys to foreign countries and into all kinds of different places and different cultures. And then I come back again. And then Spirit say, and I was living down at Rye, and I was trying to find a new place because the place I was living at was no longer available. I'd been there for 6 years, and I kept looking all over Red Hill, Hastings, all around that area, and I couldn't find something. And I kept then began to wonder, maybe I'm looking in the wrong place. Where should it be? And then this whole project came up for me to come up to Queensland to shoot a documentary film, which I'm a filmmaker. And I came for the Woodford Folk Festival, and I began to look around here, and I thought, oh, this is different. And then with all the people I got to work with, I found they were highly capable people, and they were very nice. And I thought, well, that's the people I want to work with. And I went back, and I had everything packed, and I just loaded it up and just moved to Queensland in 2006. But that's the short story.
Yeah, it's always the short version, because the real version, you can't even explain the real version when you follow where you're being led, guided, or meant to be. It just does unfold. So I totally understand. I found myself in those situations, galloping around the planet, and things just happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
they do. And there was that other thing that, you know, I came from I guess a relatively comfortable childhood, and yet when I took off, I took off with nothing really, and yet I was always taken care of.
Yep.
It wasn't that I lived in luxury or anything like that. You know, sometimes I slept under a hedge, you know, just wrapped up in a blanket.
Yep.
But I always had one meal a day. Somewhere, food always came. And there were a number of times when I was in very tricky situations. It could have been life or death situations. And something at the very most crucial moment would just suddenly change it. And I'd be protected. And that led me on to many different cultures, and asking, well, what is this all about? Why are we here? I began to see people were all the same, basically. We're all, you know, some have a different suntan. That's all I could see. I don't see race. I see, oh, you got a great suntan. I got to lie in the sun for ages to get anything like you. And I just found people were people. They had different cultures, different languages, different traditions, but basically we're all the same. And that once I began to see that, after about 6 or 8 years of traveling into different cultures and that, I began to think, well, what is the purpose of all this? That's when those kind of questions began to rise with me. And then the question about reincarnation came up. And reincarnation, when I looked at it, I remember when I first pondered that question, I was actually sitting on a mountain on the side of a hill outside Beirut in Lebanon.
As you do.
As you do. And I was looking down at, this is before they had their civil war in the 60s. And I was looking down on Beirut. It was sparkling like a jewel on the edge of the Mediterranean. And I looked down there and I was pondering this question of reincarnation. And I thought, well, I don't know if it's true or it's not true, but just supposing it is possible, what does that open up? And suddenly, all kinds of possibilities began to occur to me. I can't recall them right now, but it just seemed to open up a whole new realm of understanding once I began to contemplate that reincarnation was a real possibility. And that always led me, I found myself instinctively going to temples. I don't know why I was doing this, because I wasn't a religious person, but I somehow liked to meet with these people that were in the temples. And the priests, I found them to be intelligent people. And I was always attracted to wisdom. Wisdom to me was something that was kind of rare. I didn't find it around the pubs in Melbourne or Victoria, Australia.
That's a different sort of wisdom there. A different sort of spirit talking, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I found myself going instinctively to seek out these people and listen to what they had to say. And they were from different traditions, the Muslims, the Buddhists, and then, of course, when I got to India with the Jains and the Parsis. And it was all these kinds of things that were just, they all became teachers to me. You know, something I'd pick up just one little grain here and a grain there of information or knowledge. Even when I met with the Muslim fundamentalists, they were just teaching how the best position to sleep. Well, that was a basic thing, but I remember that one. Yeah,
it's very important. To find the basic way to sleep can get us through anything. If we get the sleep, that gives us the rest time and the energy to then go forth. No sleep, it's hard to struggle the next day.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Get your fuzzy brain. Anyway, fire your questions, Anthony.
Well, you've sort of covered some of it already. I mean, I wanted to explain to people that, well, there's a few things you've been doing. One, you've been helping out the magazine with supplying us with some amazing footage of the floods that have been occurring in New South Wales and the devastation that's been caused. And, you know, we're not seeing that on mainstream media very much at the moment. It seems to have sort of moved on.
Forgotten now, yeah.
Yeah, look, oh no, we've got to go to Ukraine, and you know we've got to go over here, but they're not really focusing on what's happening back here in Australia as much. And they do.
I can explain something that happened about that, Anthony. Yes. I was talking about, you know, spirit guiding. The way that all took place, I'd been actually filming an event called the Freedom Rally. There've been a number of different rallies up here on the political and about the lockdowns and the mandates and things like that. And I filmed one, it was a freedom rally, and somebody got up there and said, well, there's going to be an appeal to help the people down in northern New South Wales. This was at the end of February, beginning, the 3rd of March, I think it was. Excuse me.
Yes, we should let our viewers or our listeners know that you're recovering from the dreaded lurgy.
The lurgy. And somebody got up and said, well, there's going to be an appeal. And it was going to happen just down the road from me where they were going to collect things, donations. I thought, well, I'll just go get my camera and go down there and take some shots. And when I got there, I found the most incredible gathering of people just giving. Piles of food, clothes, gumboots, cleaning supplies, animal food, just absolutely stacks of it. And it was all being sorted by women. The women were right in there, and young girls. It seemed to be they knew exactly what to do. This goes here, this goes there. And the guys are all picking it up and loading it into vans and doing the heavy lifting. One guy turned up with 6 brand new electric power generators. And I thought, this is incredible what's going on here. And in the middle of all this, I had this huge hit of what it's a spiritual thing. In India, we call it Shakti. And I had this huge hit. I'm standing in amongst all these people, and there's just a wave of goodness that was coming from all these people. There was so much love and joy and enthusiasm that was happening there. This was so different to the lockdowns we've been through with all the fear. And something just, and I almost started crying, but I thought, oh, no, you can't, I'm making a film here. Can't start crying in the middle of that, but something hit me there. And then somebody said, we got all this to take down to Northern Rivers and to Gympie and that. Is anybody who could take it down to Mullumbimby? And there were people already loading up for Mullumbimby, but they needed more. And I just found my hand went to stop just like that. I said, I'll do it. I knew people down that way. And I thought, well, I was due to go down that way. I'll just go earlier. And then they said, okay, here's $100 for petrol. Well, okay, I guess I'm on my way. This was just all spontaneously happening. So a couple of days later, I drove down to Mullumbimby, delivered all kinds of supplies. My car was chock-a-block, or a station wagon chock-a-block, full of all kinds of things. I was surprised at the amount of animal food in there. People really thinking about the little animals and the cleaning supplies and the gumboots and the blankets and things like that. And after that, I started asking questions about where the most serious affected areas were. I knew about Lismore, but I didn't know about the small towns. And people started telling me, you should go here and go there. Actually, one person that I did an interview with was Adam. Adam Duncan?
Gibson from
Gibson.
Adam Gibson.
Yeah, from the
So I went up.
questions, yeah.
Parents of Questions. And I went up and did an interview with Adam because I'd heard him. I'd actually filmed him the weekend before at this event when I first heard about the appeal. And I called Adam. I said, I'd like to do an interview with you and just give it to you, just to help you out, because I like what you're doing. And so I went and did that. And it was Adam that connected me up with Supernal. And Adam was the one that was telling me a lot about what had happened there and where to go and who to talk to. And so off I went the next day and I started going around and filming. And then Adam called me and told me about Supernal. And then I got on the phone with Supernal and said, you got a deadline. It's 7 a.m. on Wednesday. And I thought, well, hang on, I haven't even made this film yet, And so I was step by step being guided. And something was really happening here. And I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't know who I was going to see or anything. There was no plan. I just walked in with my camera and asked if I could speak to. Of course, people first said, well, who are you? Which media company are you from? And I always said, I'm totally independent. I'm here to tell the truth. And I want to tell your story. And that was enough. Then people welcomed me in. And I had the most wonderful interactions with people, quite spontaneous, nothing planned. I didn't say, well, now we're going to do this or do that. We just started talking. And I just took the best of it and put it together into that film. And I finished the film at 4 o'clock in the morning, sent it down to Anthony, and it was ready for about 7 o'clock on that Wednesday morning.
And we went live that day. So pretty good. And
that was fast. But I look back on that and I realized, and it came out, it came up to me, the Spirit of Australia, because that's what I found. It was this goodness, this Aussie spirit. And when I said to people, Aussie spirit, everybody knew what I was talking about. You didn't have to explain it. And this was, to me, I'm convinced my guru was guiding me, or spirit guiding me, whichever way you want to put it. And that's how it came out. And I couldn't call it just the Spirit of Australia, because there was a train called the Spirit of Australia. And I thought, no, it's not about a train. And there's probably plenty of other stories called the Spirit of Australia. So I made this super long title, Spirit of Australia in the Northern New South Wales flood recovery. It's the longest title I've ever had. But that's what happened. And I'm convinced it was just totally a spiritual exercise. And here we are. Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. Well, I should point out too to listeners that those videos, that video, the interview with Adam Gibson, plus the Help It's On Its Way that you did as well, that film, they're all available in the March issue of Supernal, where people can just basically click on the link, go through to your video page, and it's all done.
Well, Help Is On Its Way was that appeal, that where that all happened to me. That was the where people were donating. And that's filmed in amongst all that. And that was the film that I was shooting at the time. I knocked that one off in a couple of hours. I mean, I don't know what happened to me. I knocked out 4 films in a couple of weeks, which is very, very fast for me. Normally it's, a week or so for one film. And but they all came together very quickly.
What I really liked about all the films, documentaries, videos, whatever you want to call them, is that they are real, and they're showing real people in real time doing exactly that, showing what Australian spirit is all about. And I think as a magazine, we're very privileged to have had having you working in the background and helping us out with material, because it's not just this stuff that's led to it, it led to the story in the latest issue, and your feature on Kumbh Mela, which I found absolutely fascinating. And funnily enough, and we'll talk about that movie in a minute because it applies to the latest issue, but I was in the dentist chair the other day, and my dentist is Indian, and I brought it up, and the look on his face was, "Oh, so you know about that?" And I said, "Well, I watched a documentary that was filmed by somebody I know, and I found it really fascinating." And he talked about a whole lot of, a few different aspects of that whole event, and just how many people and how big it is, and he focused on some of the negative aspects around it all. However, your documentary focuses on really trying to educate people as to what this is really all about. And so that alone, just that one documentary, I mean, that's been huge in your life.
Yes, well, that particular film, before I even made that film, I'd lived in India for 10 years, and that was studying with my guru, studying yoga and living in a monastery or an ashram in north of Mumbai. And I'd learned a lot about the traditional world. But I also knew that Westerners had a hard time understanding the Indian culture. They just sort of saw it through their own filter of their own understanding, and often got it wrong. There was a very famous French filmmaker called Louis Malle, who made a film about these events, about these big gatherings of the holy men, and he just put his own spin on it and ended up insulting the Indians. And I thought, now I can see there's an opportunity here to get it right. So I set out with that in mind. I'd been invited by the successor to my guru to come and make this film. We've been talking for a couple of years, and I thought, oh, big project. I don't know how I'm going to do that. I didn't really have a plan, and I couldn't get any support from any financing agencies here in Australia. Nobody wanted to know about it. ABC, CBS, SBS were the only ones that could possibly even come remotely near it. And then Film Australia, Film Victoria, and all those people, it was very hard. And so I had to somehow, then I got fired. I was working at TAFE in Frankston in Victoria. And I got made redundant, actually. It wasn't fired because I did nothing wrong, which was a problem for them. They had to get rid of me. And but the longer I hung in there, the more money they had to pay me. So I ended up with a huge pile of money, all the equipment. I thought, I know what I'm going to do. And it was a setup, a spiritual setup. Gave me all the tools I needed, all the money I needed to go and make this film. And off I went. And it was my intention to tell the truth. Now, and I wanted to make this film for a non-Indian audience to try and help them to understand what this is really all about. Why are these people doing this? And so I went there, and I was immediately welcomed by my guru brother, who is now a well-known teacher in his own right, Swami Nityananda. And he gave me a room. I brought my equipment with me, and then, like in an ashram, you don't get a room by yourself. You're usually in a bunk room sort of thing. But I had my own room and opportunity to really focus on this, and I did. And I didn't quite know what I'd stepped into, but it was a huge gathering of 35 million people came. I was there for 3.5 months. I started off thinking, this is really too big for me to really make sense of. But that was my mind got in the way. And very quickly, I was called that there was a big procession coming, and get your camera. So I went out and started filming, and it changed from being too difficult, too big, I don't think I can do this, to, my God, I'm in the most fortunate person on the planet. This is amazing. And I'm in the middle of it, and I'm getting to film it. And then I was networked amongst all kinds of different holy men. Access was fantastic because people that knew me, and particularly knew my guru, Swami Muktananda, who had left his body in 82. Do you know?
I wondered who you were speaking about, Muktananda. Yeah, okay.
I was 10 years with Muktananda.
Oh.
And Muktananda was the one who bought me my first video equipment and started me making films. So I'm aware that the purpose for this is to make films that are useful to the human condition. That's the best way I put it. And so that's how that all unfolded. And, I ended up with a very senior monk. It was called, there's 10 different sects in India, and the head of one of the sects, they're very senior monks, and their role, he was what was called an Acharya Mahamandaleshwar. His name was Shivendra Puri. He offered to help me. And I said, well, that'd be fantastic. And I said, if you would look at my film, I won't release it until you say that it's correct. And he said, oh, I can do that. That's easy. And so I had on my crew, if you like, one of the most senior monks of India, helping guide me to make sure that it was the truth. And my intention was, and I didn't know how I was going to achieve this, was to reach the largest number of people possible all around the world with whatever film that came out. And I didn't even know what the film was going to be like. And so I went through this whole thing, and I came back to Melbourne and I edited. I still couldn't get anywhere with SBS or ABC. Nobody would support it. But I knew there was a market in Europe, and I went to Europe. And the first people I met were from the Danish Broadcasting Corporation. They immediately said, we like this film. We'd like to show it, but we want to make some changes. And so we went and completely remade the film in the studios of the Danish Broadcasting Corporation in Copenhagen, which was interesting for me because I'd left Australia as a young boy, and I lived in Copenhagen for nearly 4 years and went to university there. So I was going back to my university days in a way, and it was very familiar to me. And it was great to be able to go there and spend time also studying about the European market. And they immediately picked it up. They started a new international distribution arm of the Danish Broadcasting Corporation and said, we'd like to distribute your film. Oh, fantastic. And then they took me to the biggest market of all down in Cannes. It's called MIPCOM. And I felt like I was an ant in a gathering of elephants. These are multi-billion-dollar deals done there. And here am I with my one little film. And it began to sell. And it began to go all over the place. And I wasn't the ones doing the selling. It was the Danish Broadcasting Corporation that were doing the marketing. And it went all over the world. And the last count I gave, I haven't done it. It's something around 80 million people have seen the film.
Wow.
And the final thing was, for me, was to show it to the people of India. I wanted to know that they felt that this was correctly representing them. And through a set of circumstances, I ended up working with the largest media company in India called the Times of India. And it turned out that the chairwoman was a devotee of my guru. When I met her, she said, oh, her guru was Swami Muktananda. And I said, well, he's my guru. That makes you my guru's sister. And that immediately changed everything. And she said, well, how can I help you? And I said, well, I want to show this film in India. And I want to do other things in India, and I need help in understanding how to do that. They gave me an office in their headquarters, networked me amazingly, and through a local television station called Asta, which means faith, they broadcast it. And it was universally well received in India. And from what I've heard of, Air India still occasionally runs it in their airline, in their, in-flight movies. So, and also it was broadcast in Australia by the ABC. The Compass program picked it up. And Geraldine Doog hosted it. And the day after it was broadcast on the ABC, I got a phone call from a professor in Curtin University in Perth. He loved it. He wanted to use it as a teaching tool. Absolutely fantastic. Well, that was what it was about. And then, of course, I was invited to come back to India and make another film about the next gathering. And that was even bigger. That was 71 million people. I mean, only in India you get these sides. Oh. And the amazing thing about these gatherings is the harmony that's there, the goodwill. You get a large mob here, you could have all kinds of problems in Australia. But there it's this going to the Kumbh Mela is like the Hajj for the Muslims going to Mecca. It's a very important sacred duty. And they feel this incredibly privileged to be there. And they say, you're here? That's fantastic. And they're here? Oh, it's wonderful. What a great thing this is, that we're all here in the company of many wise and holy people. So it was great for me to be able to be there. And then this is what led me on to asking those questions about Jesus of Nazareth, and talking to them about what they understood about him, because I'd read a book when I was living in the ashram called The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. And that was the first I began to think about this question of what had happened there. And that there was missing years of his life in the, from what I understood. I'm not a student of the Bible, but there didn't seem to be much talked about. He's just this bloke that turned up in his mid to late 20s and began to get up people's noses.
Like yourself.
I love it.
Anyway, so that's in a short way. I have been blessed.
I love it.
I've met many great people.
Well, you've followed your purpose. You've listened. You've been and done and stepped into where you were meant to. And so they do work it out. You said it was all back at Frankston when you were redundant. What a gift. People go, oh, well, this is happening. They don't see the gift in it. It's bringing something, if we just trusted more and had that faith, to take us forward into something else. They don't want to do these things to get somewhere. They don't realize that they miss out by trying to avoid and get all stressed out about the bad bits, what seemed bad. And we are human, so it could be quite,
there is,
but we're actually gifted and given.
Well, there is a thing that's a lot of people get caught up in their responsibilities. I was fortunate that had navigated my way through life and still have, where I don't have a wife, don't have any children, I don't have those problems. So I have the freedom.
Fortunate in problems, he says.
Well, the holy men of India, and they'd say, where's your wife? I said, I don't have a wife, don't have any children, don't have any problems. He said, great, you're one of us.
Well, maybe that's what it is.
So I had the freedom to be able to do these things.
Yeah.
And that was a blessing. And I still have, I'm not caught up in a relationship at the moment. Occasionally that comes up and I think, wouldn't that be nice? But but then I'm contemplating that there's a chant I do every morning that came from Swami Muktananda. We used to do it every morning. It's called the Guru Gita. It's a song of the Guru, and there's 182 verses in it. And I chant that every morning. And there's a verse in there about the Guru removing all the obstacles in the world that would be obstacles to you getting in touch with yourself or progressing on the spiritual path. And for my way of thinking, perhaps that's what's happened.
So you chant every morning. It helps you to find yourself and your spiritual self, which is, as you said, meditation. It's what I try and do every day. If not in my revamped studio now, but also outside. I find that if I'm outside doing something, it's very easy just to get into that groove and feel the energy of the trees and the stuff that I live with. So, and I miss it when I get a chance to do it. So when I was living in India for a shorter period of time than 10 years, working with the monks, I did a 2-day workshop at a monastery called Beer, and B-E-E-R.
More beer.
Yeah. Very, very forward-thinking monastery. And so 2 days of learning to meditate with sound. And so it didn't matter whether it was barking dogs, traffic, rock bands, symphony orchestras, the whole art of getting one into a space where you can just be in that space. It doesn't matter what happens externally around you, you just feel good about being in your space. And it's one of the things that it doesn't matter where I am, whether I'm on a plane, in a car, not driving of course, I can be around noises, traffic in India, as you would understand it, starts at about 4 o'clock in the morning and finishes about 10 o'clock at night, and it's constant all the time, beeping horns, banging, crashing, all that sort of stuff. And so it was quite easy for me to meditate in those things because they're just part of that overall life. And so finding oneself is really important. Now, Shirley, you were looking at Geoff's birth numbers for the galactic kin. How
Yes.
is he living his purpose?
Yes, I believe so. Well, I couldn't argue after listening to everything he said, could I? But born on the 28th of February, 1942, you've got a good mix of the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine coming together, and it creates the mind, the empathy, the feeling, the understanding, the compassion energy, the communication, visionary, artistic, all that drive leading you along. And what underlying you in your numerology is the number 9 that underlines every day of your life, underpins it. And that's here to be of service. You're here to be of service. And you're a one life path in numerology. So that gives you that, I can go forward, I can do the lone wolf, I can tend to the people, assist the people, be of service, but still have my own path as well. It's very much body, mind and spirit energy. And you've got the great big 8 sitting down here as well, which gives you the bigger perspective, the bigger picture, the vision, the ability to step up and actually make things super duper large, as has happened. And in your dream spell kin, your purpose as a cosmic being here on Earth, you are red planetary dragon, planetary. So around the planet you have traveled. The planetary tone is of manifestation. So you're bringing things into being. It's number 101, 101. And it says, I perfect in order to nurture, producing being. I seal the input of birth with the planetary tone of manifestation. I'm guided by the power of universal water. Means you're guided by the power of the moon, the sacredness of the moon, the energy, the healing, the waters, which we are mostly water as human beings. Water is our large component of what we are. We're surrounded by the waters and the emotions of the peoples on the planet. Water is the emotion. So you're guided by the power of healing. You have the mirror, which came up earlier. I felt so much mirror energy going on, and I'm sitting here for the first time with a set of mirrors behind me, which aren't usually in here, and looking at your kin. That is your like mind, the mirror, the reflection. So behind those, behind the camera and looking through the lens, and then filming it, you're really reflecting to the world. You're being a mirror to the world so they can see. You have, here's your monkey kin energy, ants, because this planetary monkey as his on the other side as the teacher, the driver. The monkey is the magician. It's the illusionist. It can create or dispel any sort of illusion it needs to in any given moment. Which so you've got monkey, magician, and mirror going on all that energy. And the inner power, your inner power is a self-existing sun. So it's about life force energy. I exist. And when I exist and I'm following my purpose, that gives out an energy that allows others around me to do the same. You're born in a wave spell, which is a 13-day period of the yellow human. So that's the sage walking the path, And I wanted to say before also, when you spoke about being up at the Northern Rivers and in the first meeting place you went to, when you put your hand up and said, I'll do it. And you said the energy, everybody was just so giving. And then you've spoken of that a few times, and then the big gatherings in India. And all you have to do, it's amazing. I was thinking of this last night, actually. I was meditating on it and trying to do it and thinking about it in bed. And you only need, if you have 71 million people, right? What you only need the root 1%. You only need the 1% of cubed or something like that to make the difference. So if millions of people, or how many people can come down, you can have a gathering of 10 people, you can gathering of 100 people, or how many millions of people, you only need so many thousand. was it the squared or something or other of 1% of how many to make that difference if you all meditate and focus and have that good energy, because it's the feeling of, which would have been happening there when you put your hand up. You were so inspired by the energy, it affected you straight away. Same with the harmonious. It's like the I was thinking of the harmonic convergence, which happens on the 16th and 17th of August every year. And I was thinking, well, I should really do something for that this year. It's important, and try and get enough people so that we just can create such a difference. So all the way you've been talking, oh, spirits in here, I'm getting quite hot now. Whew, here they come. So it's really hot, which doesn't usually happen to me, doesn't it? It's not a hot flush, I can assure you. I'm too old for that. Woo. They're really coming close. That you can have so many people to create such a beautiful harmonious energy, and that's what we need here in Australia. We're brought together not by a cultural or religious gathering so much. We usually have to have some sort of tragedy or something happen, like the flooding, right? And then we all come together and our best comes. It brings out the best. But imagine if we did it because we're going to have a harmonic convergence and we're going to just sit and feel, not say, not do anything, but feel that energy. And when you feel it, it comes out and it affects. And that creates, as you know, when they do those sort of things, when they check those meters, you know, crime goes down, accidents go down, all sorts of things reduce.
Because you've got the mass people out there.
Yeah, and you only need a cubed root or something of 1%. So it brings it down to such a small amount of people need to be focused in the same energy, just sitting and feeling the feeling to create mass global difference.
It's interesting you're talking about this, because
all last night it was working through my brain.
this is exactly what I want to do.
Oh, yes.
With the skills that I've got, with the equipment I've got, is to reach mass numbers of people. And I've done this. I worked at the United Nations in the 1980s on massive projects involving millions and millions of people all around the world as fundraisers for UNICEF. But it was a shift. And I saw that you can do this. And I'm about to do a broadcast on the 14th of May from Brisbane. And this is all around the election. There's going to be massive protests and rallies all around Australia. I believe there's some rallies internationally as well around mandates and lockdowns. My job is the broadcast, the setting up the television broadcast. I've got my own equipment to do that. And make it so that the message that goes forward from these rallies is an uplifting message. I mean, I don't have a control over the content, although I did speak at a recent rally, and I just found myself moved to step up and talk about the people I found in Northern New South Wales in the floods, their spirit, and how the people that were down there and the people that were at the rally were exactly the same people, and that there's fantastic spirit amongst them, and that they're all great beings. They're all fantastic people. And to really come together and be strong and be unified to change the situation we have right now. Now, that was a spontaneous talk I gave in front of Parliament House in Brisbane. I was filming another event, but the main speaker got it wrong when he was sort of slightly bagging the military for being late to the party down there. And I said, well, hang on just a minute. I was there amongst them. I'd like to say something. And suddenly I was on stage and I spoke and I talked about that and how the soldiers that I met, that I walked in there in the mud, fantastic people, really good people. And they did all the hard yakka of clearing out the houses. But I found that in this moment, I just want to clarify for the people, because there had been a film that went around that showed soldiers just unloading a trailer and being filmed by another soldier. And I thought, well, that was not what I experienced. So I wanted to clarify that. And I'm really keen about the truth. And about, I talk about truth and about love. And I'm not talking about ooey gooey love. I'm just saying that love, human love, love of and respect of one for the other, is some of the most powerful energy in the world. And if this is brought forward, and it's within all of us, if this can come together in large numbers of people, exactly what you're talking about can take place. We start connecting with our inner spirit, with the goodness within us. That I'm hoping will affect the outcome of the coming election.
Yeah, well, it's so two
Yes,
things.
Exactly, it's what I was thinking last night. Yeah,
jumped out.
not planned.
So yeah, two things jumped out at me there, Geoff. Was one, I was going to bring up about the fact that you spoke your truth up at the rally, but two, the 14th is. I just was watching a post this morning actually through Parents with Children about the upcoming rallies on the 14th, just before the election, to try and get people to understand how to vote properly.
Yes.
And that the more I'm learning about this, and I know very little about the whole system really, I'm learning every day, but the more I'm learning about this is if there becomes a Labor Green hung parliament, which is what some of the media commentators are talking about, it's going to leave us open to a lot of very extremist independents that are wanting to continue with mandates and continue with control and all the rest of it. And so Topher Field and a few other people have put out a lot of information about how to vote correctly, and that's important, and that's something that we want to sort of really get people to understand, that if you vote correctly, you've got more chance of getting the right people in.
Yes.
And getting rid of this ridiculous two-party system, and not have extremists go the wrong way. And we talk about that here in Victoria. The Daniel Andrews government made a deal with some independents who, in my world, have just sold their soul to get what they wanted, and they've sold the soul of Victoria away. And it became even harder because that's what allowed Andrews to get the new emergency powers through, which can literally, if he wants to, he can put off the election under his rules. All he has to do is declare an emergency, and that's it. And most people don't realise that. Most people don't realise that those emergency powers allow authorised officers to walk onto your property and physically hold you down and jab you if that's what is required. Now, that's just one little snippet. I think from memory, and don't quote me on this, it was 75 pages that were sent to me of that particular emergency services document, and it's a hard read. It's really important that people understand the importance of voting correctly to stop government corruption, which is rife at the moment, especially here in Melbourne. Every time someone opens their mouth about an inquiry, Daniel Andrews says yes, 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 and then suddenly, it's a board inquiry, and the questions aren't answered and nothing happens. So I'm not a political nut as a general rule, but I love Melbourne. I'm passionate about Melbourne, and I'm disgusted with what's been done to Melbourne, and what I've seen done in other parts of Australia as well. But Victoria is the testbed for the rest of Australia, always has been, and it's very hard for other states to quite understand that. But everything that's been done to Victoria is now being implemented in other states, and while it's being dropped in other states very quickly, it's still being held here in Victoria, and it's caused countless damage, countless businesses, people's families, lives, the whole bit. So I think standing up and speaking your truth is something that I've started to learn to do myself personally more in the last 12, 18 months than I ever have. And I take my hat off to you, because you've really, you stood up when you felt you needed to stand up, and not everybody does that. But the coverage that you've supplied the magazine, let alone everywhere else, has really showed that there's that Australian spirit, and that spirit is alive and well. And
it is very much so.
Yeah. So
that was brilliant to discover. I mean, just even what that who was one guy down there in Corokai he was a guy with a beard. I forgot what his name. He was a veterinarian, and he said, you know, this COVID has not damaged the Australian spirit. It's still alive.
Yeah,
he was very clear about that, and that was great.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shame it takes such an amazing disaster to bring it out, but at the end of the day, that's really been the way Aussies have worked through time.
It's a blessing, and it's what it's about global. It's bringing the world together.
Mm.
It's a global. It was rained upon us in 2020 is number 22. That's Master Chaos. That's the divine goddess. She spewed it. Boom, it allowed. Nothing happens unless it's supposed to happen. So it brought, the world has just gone like this. We're all very small now. We're connected and we can see each other on such a different playing field to what we did. And this is the only way things ever get sorted out and shifted, because otherwise we just roll along, putting up with or doing whatever. This is enforced change for us to raise our vibration and build and create that which we have in here, which is divine. It's supernal. We have that divine energy that we need sometimes, like being made redundant, having to go out and do stuff. Oh, wacko, now I've got the tools. We're actually been given so many tools and opportunity to utilize to build something up that's amazing, because we are super beings. And we have to sometimes fight against that which wants to, you know, keep us from being that. Gives us a project, gives us something to do. Oh, that's not right. I can't have to stand up for this. Whereas otherwise you wouldn't if it wasn't that severe. So it gave us a format, a foundation to build upon. And here we go.
Yeah, well, that's the thing.
And this year's the 6222. It's powerful, all coming together. It's people, situations, how we see, how we're going to turn it around.
No, that's it. So there's a lot there. There
was that whole thing of the time we're going through. As I was traveling the world, I was beginning to shift my perception of the world around me, but I began to wonder about, is there something else taking place here that I'm witnessing, which is what I call the spiritual awakening? Is there a shift in consciousness taking place around the world? And I asked a number of holy men in India, is this really taking place? And they said, yes, it is. And they said, well, I said, well, is it taking place, or is it just that I'm changing? They said, well, both things are happening. I'm changing and the world is changing. And
microcosm, macrocosm.
Yeah. Well, it was what I've been looking for in this whole process that the nation's in at the moment, is this spiritual awakening coming forward and changing. And I'm seeing it in this, you know, the old phrase, wake up Australia. And they were asleep. You know, they'd go and vote, and they'd send their elected of whoever off to do his job, and then they'd forget about it. There was no political activism here, and those elected officials could get away with whatever they wanted. It was stupid. And so we have this corrupted system now. And this is a huge awakening that's taking place right now. And this whole idea of education about how to vote, very, very important.
Absolutely.
That rally that I got up and spoke to was a rally with 6,000 or 8,000, maybe 10,000 people in front of Parliament House in Brisbane they wanted to extend the emergency powers, which they eventually did anyway, because they had the majority in the House. But we made a heck of a noise outside. And only one member of Parliament came out to meet us. And the rest of them were just going to do whatever the party wanted. Which
they have forgotten that they are public servants. They're here to be of service to the public. They have no right. They are not bigger and above. They are totally got to be on the ground, down those steps and speaking immediately. The whole thing's become some sort of megalomaniacal.
Yeah, they get into positions of
illusion. Yeah.
And they're speaking down to us. I said, hang on, you're my servant. I'm paying your wages. You know, but because they've got access to a big bucket of money, they don't even think about that.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, that they've all been enticed with money to make them, you know, seem as if they're better than everybody else.
Well, given something they don't want to let go of. Once you've got something, it's damn hard to let go of it.
Yes.
And if they were living the life of thousands of ordinary Australian people, which are extraordinary people anyway, and if that, in their world they're just the ordinary plebs that, they're in lower socioeconomic groups.
Feed them cake, they say.
Yeah, they're just basically going, well, I can just lord it over you, so bad luck, and I get paid to do it. How good's that? And that's that narcissistic approach that all politicians have, that I don't think I've met a politician yet, and I've met a few now, that I would actually bend over backwards to help. There's not one that I think is serving their people properly. And
well, they're groomed. They're professional career politicians, most of them. And Andrews has been groomed since he was a child.
Exactly.
Well, we had a gathering up here recently in January, I think it was, and Campbell Newman, who used to be the Premier of Queensland. He got up and spoke. I filmed the whole thing, not only him, but all the other speakers as well. And all I saw Campbell Newman doing was he read the crowd. What does the crowd want to hear? I'll tell them what they want to hear. And that's all he did. We'll tell them what they want to hear. Oh, we don't like this. We don't like that. Oh, no, I agree. This is really bad. This is bad. And so, but they nothing about what he stood for, what he was really going to do. He just created this illusion that I'm on your side.
Yeah, or they bag the other mob. Everybody, I've been driving down the freeway and there's big billboards about it won't be easy under Albanese and all this crap, but all they're all doing is bagging the other parties all the time. I can't stand that. And they're so stupid because really they say any attention is better than none. So really they're doing these huge things of the oppositions, whoever, and putting them out there instead of putting them and what they're standing for and what they're doing up. It's very negative. It's not positive.
Well, the positive one that I've come across is this organization called Reignite Democracy.
Yeah.
And very interesting. And I've been reading their material and they are supporting all the independent candidates and even the incumbents, allowing them, they put out a questionnaire to them saying, well, what do you think about this? And allow them to put their replies in there. So it is happening. And Reignite Democracy run a series of online seminars educating people about the voting. I've still got to get my head around this whole thing of preferences.
Yes, I totally agree. And
yeah, that's the hard bit, isn't it? And my daughter, we've been giving out flyers for them, right? We've delivered those, so we're filling them around here, and they're, like you said, they're giving the assistance in how to vote and do all that. And I've met them because he'll be running for Flinders, Morgan Jonas, and Monica. So there's a whole different ball game. And look, you never agree with everybody and there's nothing that's perfect, but we've got to find things to work with and work around, and uniting and bringing a bit of a united thing and supporting each other and putting it out so that we can get the best of and something to work with is exactly I think you're saying. Yeah.
What I'd like to see is, I'm unless somebody convinced me to support a party, which would take a little bit. What I would like to see is the education that we're talking about, and that is how you do your preferential voting. Yes, it takes longer to number all the squares, and yes, it takes longer to do with these, but what they're suggesting is you have your own sheet already written up, so when you go in to vote, all you have to do is follow your own sheet and it's done. Yeah. But what I want to do is educate people into not doing dud votes.
Yeah, no, don't do that.
Make your vote count for something, because if it doesn't, the way the system works is those votes will go off elsewhere and other things will happen because that's what they're classed as. You might think you're not voting, but by not voting, you are voting.
Voting, yeah.
And so this is a really important point. That
I didn't understand that one. I thought if you didn't vote, there was no vote.
Yeah, but every no vote against doesn't class. Sorry, I start that again. Every time you do a false vote or whatever, you just sign your name off and you scribble, some obscenity or something like that. What happens is it's one less vote that goes towards somebody that could be doing something.
Yeah, yeah.
So my understanding is that they don't count those votes and give them to the winning party. My understanding is if you don't vote, out of, say there's, 3 million people in Australia voting, and 2 million of them do dud votes, well, all that does is reduce down.
Enable the major parties.
Yeah.
Because most people who say, I don't want to go Labor, I don't want to go Liberal, so I'll just mess up the thing and throw it away. But really, it's not making then the independents or anyone count.
That's it. And that's
it
what
gives
it's about.
More coverage to the ones that are sticking with Labor and Liberal. Whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I've had conversations with people that just saying, I don't care if I get fined, I don't want to vote. I don't like anybody. And you say to them, well, have you actually researched some of the independents like RDA, One Australia, the Australia Party, all these other people, not necessarily the big name ones that we see. One Nation even, for example, has some really interesting people now with Christensen going across. Now, this is not a political show, so I'm not sort of saying which ones I support and don't and blah, blah, blah. But the fact is, unless you're prepared to look at it, your traditional voters, and this happened to me the other day with a member of the family, an older member of the family, they started talking politics at me. And I turned around and said, here in Melbourne, if you look at what the Labor Party has done to Victoria and Melbourne and the businesses and the this and that and all the rest of it, and at that point they stopped dead in the conversation. And I've never known this person to ever stop in a conversation politically wise. And so what we've got to do is convince some of these older people that have just traditionally always voted one way to start researching some of the people that have got policy in a different way, the freedom fighters, the people that are trying to stand up for everyday Australians, and somehow bring it back to
the balance of power.
A balance of power, yeah.
Can I ask you, Shirley, you have an ability to look at things from a more of a cosmic point of view. This might be putting you on the spot. Going forward, for our nation, what do you see?
Well, they've shown me things over time about this, and they'll only show me what I need to know in the moment. And then sometimes it's hindsight and I don't even understand it till later. But I can tell you that we are in the time of mutation, which goes up to about 2027. There's great shift and change. And I always wondered, knowing about that from something that I'd read through the Human Design, it was prophesied back in before 2011. He wrote about now. And I wondered what it meant. But when we got into this, I realised this is how it mutates and changes from what's been going on. We as a society, physically, I will say from being injected, and mentally and emotionally and as a society, it's a great mutation and shift and change, and it's not easy. But what I can tell you is that we are to be very aware of what we're doing and the whole medical side of it. I've been given that, and I was shown about vaccines and things before they came. And we have a lot of work to do. And as the party thing is, I feel they haven't said, oh, so-and-so is going to get in or whatever's going to get in. I knew when Abbott and what was her name, Julia Gillard, were going on. They told me then about the seesaw, the swinging vote thing that happened. That was interesting. And I haven't had that about this. I feel like we're writing it ourselves now, and it's like an open slather. It's not like it's actually not there in a solid factor form. It's actually now to us how we take this. This is new cosmic history that we are writing. I firmly believe that. I don't feel worried about anything. I know that perhaps I'm not in a position that a lot of others are in, where I've had to lose my job or do anything like that, because I don't work that way. But I don't have a fear. I'm more worried about us and our mental state and the children and what's being done, rather than the whole political thing. This is a time to have no political. What happens is there will be no politics. We are heading towards wise counsel. That's what we're heading towards, so that this as it crumbles. So it's not about fixing the system because it's crumbling. It's the tower coming down, and that's what they did show me. And this is how we build the new. So that's where it's going. So it's not like one or the other. It's like got to let that come down, ground zero, to build this up and build the new thing, because they will go.
I've been looking for the wisdom
And,
in all
yeah.
of the gatherings.
Yeah, and Andrew himself, if I bring it back to local, you know, he's been born and bred and acclimatized. Now he's in the end of a cycle at the moment that will take him into new things. So he's just ready for new beginnings now. Whether he's out and does something or whether he steps up into another place is yet to be seen. It's a funny thing how that's working.
Who are you talking about here?
Daniel Andrews, our local, you know, Victorian government. But with ScoMo on that, well, you know, his time's done because, in a way, because he's not even interested in picking it up. He's not interested. He's done his thing.
Yeah,
he's not all been pre-programmed for so long. This is a big shift and major change. So who they think they're voting in, they're not anyway. So
yeah, another one of those.
Yeah, he's done his thing. This has been so long coming, and people think it's all happening because of COVID. It's not. It's already been planned and put into place.
You're talking about planned spiritually or planned by man?
Man.
Mm-hmm.
I think spirit has,
and it wouldn't be allowed. Yeah, it's not. Nothing happens that isn't meant to, because this is how we grow. We came here for this experience. Well, although now we're having it.
I think the one thing that really that triggered the beautiful bell in my head was when you said, "I have no fear." I don't feel. I don't. People can let go of the fear that is surrounding everything that's being driven by mainstream media, by politicians, narcissistic.
Turn off the news, turn off the TV, turn yourself around, find your purpose.
Exactly, and let go of the fear. And you know, when we were talking about the state of emergency powers earlier, I
don't follow. See, I don't follow them. I don't follow.
No. It's not about.
No, but I mean, I haven't followed they can say and tell me I don't follow their rules.
Yeah, but what I'm getting at here, Shirley, is the fact that they've put those powers in place is one thing. If they decided to come and walk up my driveway and say, right, well, we're empowered by the government to jab you, I wouldn't actually go fighting and screaming because I wouldn't be there with the fear of what that might mean. So regardless,
it won't even happen.
If people can let go of the fear and embrace the change, embrace in the moment, I think that makes a very different way forward for everybody.
If you fight something, it fights back.
Absolutely.
We'd have to come to that harmonious place of peace and empowerment and put it out. So
Geoff said that beautifully earlier. And it's about love. And it's about love and love
the heart,
away from the heart space.
Yeah,
heart mantra, which is made.
I'm not talking about ooey gooey stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm talking about, love is a very powerful energy, and
absolutely
the power of attraction. I mean, it's what makes the planets move around. There's an attraction going on there, and it loves brings about procreation of the species. And it is that love. When I was amongst these millions of people, unbelievable love was there, and that's what I came across again in the Northern Rivers. Love, but it was not stated love.
No,
it was attitudinal.
Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing.
Compassion is the big.
Yeah. Now we are running up to the end of our show.
Oh,
what's in store for you in the next little while, Geoff?
Well, I'm focusing on basically this. I'm helping an independent candidate here, Kelly Jacoby. She's very interesting. You should have a look at it. Kelli Jacoby. She's in the Wide Bay electorate, and this is up here in Queensland. But I'm trying to help her with a promotional video. And the next major one is going to be producing the broadcast for the rally. It's called the People's Revolution Rally on the 14th of May, and this will be online. The rest of it is, Anthony, I need to figure out how to make money. I've got to get this thing turned around. It's a bit of a challenge. How to do that? I've been bidding for all kinds of different projects, and they seem possible, and then they disappear. And then it's happened time and time again. And I don't know what the karma is that's going on around here, but that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, they're not paying me to do this rally. I'm doing it because I know I can do it. And because there is a need for it.
I think, you know, what I was getting
Asking
while
it
you were talking is a vision of divine timing, and you're putting all this effort in, you've put in a lot of effort. There's things, it's sort of in a way, what you said earlier is you've got to get yourself into a space where you can be in the right moment at the right time, to let it roll, to follow your heart, to follow what Spirit's giving you. And so it's like all these little things with these shows and what you're doing to help us and all the rest of it is sort of like broadening now another horizon to tap into. So I really do think, believe that it will only be, you know, a matter of time, and maybe a month or two before things start to actually work better for you in that space, because that's what I'm getting up out of what's there. Yes, Shirley.
I'm going to read where Geoff is currently at in his calendar. Since your birthday, you come out of a warrior energy year, where it's about letting everything dissolve and to be fearless, right? That's what you've come out of. You were, I'll go through that. You were yellow spectral warrior, right? Dissolving in order to question, releasing fearlessness, sealing the output of intelligence with the spectral tone of liberation, guided by your own power doubled, trusting yourself, liberating yourself. I'm no fear, I'm going forward. So, right, that's what you've been coming out to. And as your birthday, you've stepped into being the crystal dragon, which is the power of cooperation, dedicating now in order to nurture, universalizing that beingness, that spirit energy, sealing the input of birth with the crystal tone of cooperation guided by the higher realms. So you'll be shown and given, and it's a 181. So the money or the goods or the abundance or whatever is required will come in and support that, right? And you're in the white dog, the wave spell of love, heart, and harmony. You're right in it now. You've just stepped into it. So you've got some things to release. So that fear about that what won't be and how am I going to do this, let it go, because it's all under control. Absolutely, that's where you're at.
That's definitely the feel I get for you.
You've done a completion year. You've got a completion, things to complete and let go of, and there's whole new beginnings coming over the next 12 months. And I've got a bit of fear. I better release that. Let it dissolve. Handing that to the universe, I go free, and boom, just pick up back that old space.
It is my wish that I'm always going to be having the tools to do work that is useful to the human condition, and also to reach massive numbers of people. It's not about me. It's about something that's coming through me.
Yes.
That I can help facilitate and bring about, that is going to be useful to many, many millions of people. And I do mean millions, because I've been out on the world stage, and I do know that I can reach there. But I need to have the right project to do that. That's what I'm interested in.
It's interesting you said, I wish. You know, you do.
You do.
You do.
I have.
There's a different, I have, you do. It's all in the wish is you're putting it out there to Spirit in a way, but it's like in the wording, and this is, you know, what we want each other, right? You've got to be fearless in that space and say, you know what, I've already done this. I do this, and this will happen. Yeah. That's
feel it.
Yeah, feel it.
The feeling is I'm already there. I'm ready to start, and here it is, and that ups that vibe, and you step in. It's coming.
That's
just getting yourself back up a bit.
Yeah, it's a matter of keeping myself in clear mind, in good health, my skills up to snuff, and my equipment all in good condition, and being alert to what's going on around me, and being able to step in and do whatever I do.
Because you're once again seeing past the illusion. You've got full monkey mirror coming in again, but it's the space, it's the other higher realms that are leading you now. And so see beyond that illusion of what I have not, and say, oh, hang on, but yes, I have.
That's it.
That's the shift I need.
Yeah, well, you're right in it. You're in it. So it's going to start coming in. coming in now because that's where you're at.
And I think that the way the change in government's going to occur and all that sort of stuff, I think you're going to find people are going to be more open and ready to take the challenge. I'm sort of finding that now. I mean, traditionally over the years in the industries that I've worked in, any period leading up to an election, everything just goes down. And everyone's waiting to see what happens before they make any decisions, choices. The stock market goes down, sales go down. And so once we come out of that next step with a positive attitude, I think that's where that change is going to jump in.
It's also about finding the right partners then, therefore, to do it with, just because you've got that power of cooperation going on. So the ones that aren't succumbing to that so much, pull them in, pull in the right ones now that will float
and make it
that
happen.
are already, that are there, not hiding away, waiting to see so much. You've got to, right, you're here, you're ready. Let's the ones that are ready do.
Yep.
There is a project that I had some meetings with earlier this week about interviewing people that are doing interesting things, that have seen the inside of the COVID issue, the doctors, the nurses, the paramedics, people like that, and recording interviews with them and putting those online. So, and it would go along with parents with questions, what they're concerned about, and facilitating that. I was originally trying to see if I could get something out before the election, but I think that's really putting a bit of a time squeeze on me. And I think I've got to think longer term on this and just keep putting them out. Interviews with different people that have got real stories to tell.
And I think, again, I know I'm using think a bit more than I normally would. There is that suggestion, though, that if it doesn't marry with the truth of your soul, it's not going to work.
That's a good one.
So, you know, that I'm just feel inspired to say it like that. If the truth of what that work is going to involve is not the truth of your soul's purpose, it won't work.
Where did you pick that up from? From
the fact that you can video all these, you know, important people and people with stories and all the rest of it, and if it's not a recording of their truth properly, then that's not going to work with you. It won't sit with you. So, for example, if you interviewed a nurse that left nursing because of the damage she'd seen, that's one story. But then there'll be a flip side of that where you'll have a nurse totally biased against what the system is doing. So you've got to find the balance in what you're going to report, how you're going to report it, what you're going to do, so that the setup is there. All right. So that's why if it's not aligned with your soul's purpose, and your soul's purpose has been to educate and show people the world, and I'm going to blatantly going to give you the plug here. People should be watching your Kumbh Mela documentary, because
Thank you.
It really opened my eyes. And I lived in India and I saw a lot of this stuff, but not like that. And it really opened my eyes to look at India in a slightly different way to what I have in the past. And so, you know, people can go to your page. The links are in the magazine in 2 issues, the latest issue, March, and the April issue. And we've got links to both those, all your movies, but then they can find you on YouTube as well. And in our little spiel, I'll put the YouTube link in there. So very important. So we're going to have to wrap this up, Shirley. So let's.
Yep, one thing.
Yep.
I drew you a card, Geoff. Number 9 came out, which is the personal year you're in, and it's the dog, which is all about love, loyalty, compassion, which you've stepped into as well. That's where you're at in your wave spell, right? I am a good friend. It says, I know sometimes I break your heart. That's because I teach you what love truly feels like. All I ever want for you is to be happy and make you smile with my endearing ways. Dogs are always there for us, loving, giving, and loyal. Their characters have the ability to elicit an array of emotions within us. They will always do what they feel is best for us, whether we realize it or not. So perhaps a lesson in non-judgment toward others who might not be acting in the way you want. Remember, you cannot truly know someone else's path unless you have walked it, so be compassionate. Dog is overjoyed when food, play, and walks in nature are given with love. Happiness can be that simple. I give love and happiness. This is the affirmation. I give love and happiness. I accept love and happiness. I am blessed with all I need in life. Ooh, chills.
Ooh, you know, up
Our
here,
spirit.
there's many dogs. I don't own a dog, but I have many dogs that are my friends, and I go and talk to the dogs before I speak to their humans. And nobody's ever said, "Oh, what are you up to there?" They love it that I come and talk to their dog.
Yeah.
And the dogs love it too.
Yep.
Love, loyalty, and compassion. That's all where you're at. So perfect.
And they're, to me, the dogs are the teachers of unconditional love.
Absolutely, they are.
Yep.
You're right
Great
in that energy now.
No, that's
Yes.
beautiful. All
Thank
right, so we're going to wrap up the show here. Thank you very much, Geoff, for coming on and sharing. I think we get you on another show definitely
Yeah.
down the track.
I'd love to, because I really like linking in with people of knowledge.
Yeah, it's great.
Well, you've
Thank you.
shared so much.
Love it.
It's amazing. So thank you.
Thank
Shirley, thank you.
Thank you.
For our listeners out there, www.supernalmagazineaustralia.com.au. We are free. We put all this together as volunteers, and so we do have a link that people can support us with donations that go towards keeping the magazine up and running. We also have so much content on our webpage. We're on Instagram now. We're growing, and would love to hear from you. And don't forget, drn1.com.au is the radio station that supports Supernal Radio and our podcast. So please jump online and check them out. To everybody, have a Supernal week, and we'll catch you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.